In the last couple sections, we took this code snippet right here and pulled it apart line by line, and we've now got a better idea of some of the very basics of the Dart language, including variables, a little bit on types, and a little bit on functions as well. In this section, we're going to start to move forward and start to look at one of the absolute core concepts of the Dart language, which is object-oriented programming. Dart uses object-oriented programming, or OOP, as a paradigm or style for writing code and designing applications. With OOP, we build our applications out of a collection of objects. An object contains some amount of data relevant to our application, like these pieces of data over here, stored inside of what we call fields or properties. This data is hidden away from other parts of our application. The only way to get access to this data right here is through the use of methods, which are functions that are defined directly on this object. One thing that I want to point out here is that we're using the term object to refer to this thing that contains some amount of data. But in Dart, you and I are going to work on something just a little bit different, so kind of a different piece of this puzzle. So in Dart, you and I are going to create what are called classes. A class contains a set of rules that define how it works. You can think of this class right here as being like a blueprint or a rule set of sorts. To actually work with this class, we create instances of the class, which are referred to as either objects or instances. So a class is just a set of blueprints, whereas an object or an instance represents a real working copy of that class. To recap, you and I write code to create classes. We then use that class to create objects or instances. A good analogy here between classes and instances is to think of a set of blueprints that might be used to build a house. When you first want to get a house built, you would go to an architect and have them put together a set of blueprints that describe how the house is going to look and function. After you get that set of blueprints put together, you can then use it to create an unlimited number of houses, or instances. So in this analogy, as you might guess, the set of blueprints over here is like the class, and the actual built house, or the actual standing house that physically exists in front of you, would be like the class, or the object, or the instance. Now in Dart, object-oriented programming is something that comes up nonstop again and again and again. So much like types that we were taking a look at earlier, it's something that we're going to be discussing throughout this course many different times. If you've ever worked with object-oriented programming before, you're going to be in good shape. If you've never touched it, you're also going to be just fine. So one of the later projects that we're going to work on inside this course, before we even start working on Flutter, is going to be intended to give you a rock-solid footing in object-oriented programming. So you're going to get a lot of experience with it. Now let's continue in the next section, and we're going to start talking about how we put together classes in Dart and some of the very core foundational concepts around them. So quick break, and we'll write some more code in just a moment.